welcome to this evening's event. So this is the third of our voluntary sector events which Becca has been putting together, and today we're going to be talking about volunteering and events. My name's Becky and I'm the Principal Community Development Officer here at Dover District Council, and to my right. Okay, so now I'm going to hand over to Mark, who is going to do a presentation for us on volunteering from Kent Coast Volunteering.
So, as I said, my name is Mark Connaughton. I work for Kent Coast Volunteering. We cover Thanet, Dover and Folkestone and Hythe districts. This is a picture of my three volunteer connectors. The lady in the middle is Selena. She looks after Dover district. The lady with the glasses is Emma. She looks after Thanet, and the other lady is Mandy. She looks after Folkestone and Hythe. So our mission is to connect communities together, which is obviously part of the reason why I'm here. And we support projects and we support volunteer involving organisations. Volunteer involving organisations, they're not always charities, they can be social enterprises, community interest organisations, community interest companies, or statutory authorities. Basically, it's an organisation that doesn't make a profit, hopefully doesn't make a loss, but doesn't make a profit. We aim to be the go-to place for volunteering, and we're continuing to do that. We continuously look to build on our infrastructure support. One of the ways that we do this is by offering our expertise to not-for-profit organisations, and we recognise that some of them can be somebody sitting at their kitchen table on the Wednesday evening trying to organise everything, right round to really big organisations like Dover District Council or maybe CAB or any of the number of big organisations. So we hope that we can support everybody, particularly if they're working with volunteers. If I read through every one of these slides, it will take forever. So I'm going to look at the salient points, if I may. As I said, we promote volunteering opportunities, and I will come on to how people can volunteer and how you can attract volunteers in a moment. We have quite a big training offer. We train on behalf of Kent Adult Education, and we also offer bespoke training courses. Our bespoke ones would normally be around safeguarding, data protection, mentoring skills. We also do some digital training, but we only do that for small charities. But we will try to help out where we can. We have resources and we do networking, which again I'll come on to in a moment. So I hope that you can see this is quite a small slide. To the left hand side of the screen, you're pretty much seeing the front page of our website. I should say we've got a fundraising quiz night on Friday in Dover, and I've been volunteered to be the quiz master, so I said I need to bring my glasses for that. So if you were to go to our website, which is kcv.org.uk, and all of this will be available. And when you go on there, the first thing that you see is volunteering search. So if you're looking for volunteering, you can go straight on there. You can go in and you can look by area of interest or by postcode, by town, several different ways that you can look for volunteering. And last time I looked, there were over 1,500 volunteering jobs on there, and we work with hundreds of organisations to support them. That particular platform is called Simply Connect. And it's really easy to use. We monitor it, or the three volunteer connectors, they monitor it every day, so it's a live database, and there's new well, job adverts, volunteering adverts being put on there every day. You can also express an interest for something that isn't available yet, so you may say like scuba diving, so you would put that on there. The next time the Marine Conservation Society do their annual survey, if they put it on there straight away, it will flag up your details as being interested. So you can kind of leave yourself on there until something becomes available and of interest to you. And this is what you'll see when you go in there. You've got the boxes, and as I say, I would advise though that if you are going to search, that you put in some type of criteria, because you will see hundreds if you don't, and it will take you forever to go through them. So the benefits of volunteering is that we were talking before about people volunteering, building up their self-esteem, feeling like they're giving something back to the community. We have a lot of people who volunteer, and they're using it as a pathway back into the world of paid work, which is absolutely fine. We have other people who volunteer because they're lonely and isolated, and volunteering is a really good way to make friends. You will find when you volunteer, or if you have volunteers, that it quite naturally that pretty much are the same sort of people, and it never ceases to amaze me how quickly volunteers make friends with each other. So it's a really good way to get company, to learn new skills, and to really feel like you're doing something constructive for your community. But then I would say that, wouldn't I? Because it's what I do for a living. But I genuinely believe that. So we've got Sonia there from our office, and then we've got a picture of Jeff. So we run the community transport service for Thanet, Dover, Folkestone and Hythe, and we're always looking for more volunteer drivers, as everybody is looking for more volunteer drivers. So if you see us out and about, I'm down in, is it Pencaster Gardens?
Pencaster.
But yeah, so I'm down there all day Saturday. So if any of you are around, please do come down and see us. Really happy to meet you all and have a good chat. These are some of our outreach events. So that's kind of what it would be like on Saturday. We do get out and about as much as we can. Even during COVID, we found a way to connect, and we introduced something which we call the virtual cuppa, which is a really informal event. It was invented because of COVID, and we send out invitations to people, and I'm there, and other members of staff are there, and literally we talk about anything to do with volunteering. We answer any questions, and it was going so well that we've continued to do that. But we need to actually physically get out and meet people, which we do try to do. This is so for your, if you're an organisation and you're looking for volunteers, and I know some of you are and some of you at home are. Again, if you go to our website and there's Simply Connect part of it, and you will find, if you click on volunteer, you will find a way to ask for volunteers. So you put in your organisation's details, the sort of volunteers that you're looking for. So you may be looking for admin, or for catering, or for construction, or something like that. So you put in the sort of volunteers that you're looking for. We then accept you as an organisation, and we check that you're not a company trying to get volunteers. When we've done that, a volunteer will go on there, they will see your advert, and you will automatically be notified that a volunteer or volunteers are interested in your organisation. You'll have your own login, which will give you simply log in. You can email them from Simply Connect, and they will pretty much instantly get a reply from you saying, I've seen that you're interested. Would you like to meet, or could we have a phone call? So it's a really good system, and it does help to find volunteers. So this is about promoting volunteering. So if you have a particular need, if you let me know or let one of my connectors know, we do marketing. We also do radio shows, and so if it is something that's really so this winter there will be a lot of volunteering that's going to be, we know it's going to be needed to keep people warm and keep people fed. So you may be doing a project in your area where you've decided that you're going to book the village hall every Friday, and you're going to invite all the local people in. You're going to warm the place up. You're going to give them soup and bread and and a jolly, and maybe do a bit of a sing song. If you're doing something like that that's really urgent, let us know, let the council know, and we will actively promote it for you, because that's why we're in the job, and we'll always help. And the other thing that I would say is, if any of you have particular things that are kind of that you're finding are making your volunteering or working with volunteers difficult, please do ask us. We will help you, and obviously we can do that privately because you'll have our contact details. So as I said, we'll advertise your roles, we'll give you advice. We're developing a best practice guide that will be available, and of course we promote volunteers. I'm going to talk about younger volunteers in a minute because that was one of the questions. Resources for volunteers, there's loads of resources for volunteers. As one of the courses that we run, and my next one in Dover is next month down at Beacon Church, is skills for volunteers, and that's where potential volunteers can come along, and I teach them about volunteering, what's expected, how to find volunteering, how it can be useful to them, and it's particularly useful maybe for people who possibly are a bit anxious. They don't know what to expect, or maybe they've been at home for a long time. That they may now have children at school and they want to get back into the workplace and use it as a stepping stone. So so we do work very closely with volunteers. I should say, when I finish this, there were some questions that were sent before, written questions, which myself and Rebecca will answer at the end of this. As I say, training skills for volunteers, confidence building. I wrote that for people who have anxiety problems and maybe are lacking self-esteem. And on that particular one, it's all about teaching them to say no. So it's okay to say no. You can say no. You don't need to say why, you just go no. But some people, when they turn up, they just can't say no. It's almost like they got a mental block. Customer service is a good one for getting people into paid work, but also for getting them into charity shops, working in an office, being in the customer facing. And we also offer accredited courses, which we broker for Kent Adult Education, which are food safety, first aid, health and safety, COSH, control of substances, hazard to health, manual handling, and we may be introducing another one, but they're the ones that we do for now. That's my next course at the Beacon Church on the 19th of October. Again, if anybody would like to, or if they know anybody that would like to book on any of the courses, you can either contact us or you can book it via our website. And this is Selena. She's currently on holiday, but she is doing regular outreach events in Folkestone, and I think she's also doing some in Deal now. That's our virtual cuppa. Any of you are welcome to attend. It's very informal. normally there's lots and lots of questions, and everybody is really pleased to meet everybody else. So it's a networking event, but it's virtual. And those are our contact details. So I think that's it for my display for that one.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Mark, for that. So we will move on to any questions for Mark. Okay, first screen, do you want to? Yeah. Okay, so a lot of you on the screen or in the chamber may be asking, what is the ESAG events process? So ESAG stands for Event Safety Advisory Group. Event Safety Advisory Groups were brought in back in 2012 off the back of the Olympics. You may remember the torch relay. We had something similar last year with the baton relay, but it wasn't as big. So the torch relay went through lots of different towns. There was lots of different elements. So they brought in Event Safety Advisory Group. The clue is in the name. It's an advisory group. So if you were to come and put an event through the process, we're not saying to you, you must do this, you must do that. It's advice. And the idea of the advice is to promote safe and effective events. So what is the role of the ESAG? So I have just covered that. So the role is to provide safe and effective events. Who makes up the ESAG? I think that's on. I'm just going to put them all so I don't repeat myself. Sorry, because I haven't got it in front of me. Okay, so the role of the ESAG does sit with the local authority. So every local authority across the country do have safety advisory groups, and they are chaired. So ours is chaired by Councillor Oliver Richardson, who is our portfolio holder, and then officer-wise it is chaired by myself. So I have led on events for a number of years, and many in the room, if you've gone through ESAG, you will know my right-hand lady, Sandra Killick, who does all the events administration, and we couldn't do it without her, because as we go through this process, you'll see there is a lot of administration within this. But as I say that, I don't want to put people off, because it is a great way to ensure safe and effective events. So it's coordinated by the local authority, but it's made up of lots of different partners. So even though it is chaired by the local authority, other partners, as you can see on the slides, include different departments from DDC. So that's health and safety, parks and open spaces. We have the property team. We have, who else? Lots of different teams. So the community safety team, CCTV, and then outside of DDC, KCC Highways, Kent Fire and Rescue, Kent Police, Coast Guard, depending on the event. And there's lots of different organisations, including CCAM, that come together. So the idea is that an application is put into the Event Safety Advisory Group, and then all of those organisations come together, they review the event, and feedback is given to the organiser. So a lot of people say, does everyone have to apply for this? It's not law. However, if the event is on DDC land, we do oblige that it goes through this process, because we are the landowner and we can say yes or no to an event. So if you wanted to go and hire Connaught Park next week for an event, we do ask that you go through this process, because we can say to you, we're not happy with this event on our land, or there is a charge for this event, etc. If the event is on, for example, Broadleys Farm, we don't say it has to go through our process, because we have no jurisdiction to say if that event can go ahead or not. However, there are powers from people such as Health and Safety Executive, Kent Police to a certain degree, KCC Highways if it was their land, that could stop an event. So in the 7 years I've been doing this, we've only ever asked one event not to go ahead. And that was an event that was taking place on the cliffs in January. It was a running event on the cliff edge, and it was snow and ice. So you can probably understand why we looked for that event not to take place. So we do, we've got quite a good reputation of working with community groups and event organisers to make sure that events go ahead. So if it's not on our land, we do say, so that wasn't on our land, but we asked for it to go through the process, because it had road closures, it had lots of different elements that we asked for it to go through the process. So the rule is, if it's not on DDC land, it doesn't have to go through the process. However, it's best practice, because you get to talk to all the different. So what this takes out is, if I was to do an event and I was to do, I don't know, a 10k run, I'm going to apply. Okay, I'm going to tell Kent Police I'm doing it. and then I'm going to go and have a chat with CCAM. This is all done in one place. So you put one application in and all of your paperwork goes to all of the different authorities, and then you get a response from that and they advise on it accordingly. So do even very small events need to go through the process? So we still say yes if it's on our lands, we need to be aware of them, but we may ask for a different level of documentation, which we're just going to come on to. Okay, so how do I apply to go to an event? So on our website, we have lots of different, so we have a whole events package, and there's a 2-minute form. The main thing you need to remember are 3 things. So the first thing is an event. So where it says new event, click. It takes 2 minutes just to fill that form out, and that's an initial application form for everyone that wants to do an event. So if you were just going to go and have a lit pick's not a great example, that's always. If you were going to have a fete with 20 people on a Saturday afternoon, we would just ask that you put through that process, and all the other documents that we would ask for is just public liability insurance. I'm going to the next slide. Oh, it's that slide. Okay, so what we ask for, depending on the event. So if it is a very small event, then we just ask for a risk assessment and a copy of public liability insurance. So any event on our land, if you do not have public liability insurance, we would not be able to let it go ahead because you have to prove you're insured. We have over the years supported many different groups to gain insurance. There's obviously funding streams you go to for that. We can signpost you. We can't tell you who to go with because we're not allowed to, but we can signpost you to different organisations that could provide that for you. Average price for a small event, you're looking at between £50 and £100. For a lot larger event or for multiple events, you can be looking into the hundreds, but it is relatively cheap to for public liability insurance. Most organisations have them anyway within their organisation, but if you are a small organisation, then you may not. If it is on our land, we have in the past supported and used our insurance, so we can do that in some occasions if it's on our land and we are supporting the event and we have staff there, etc. So risk assessment. So also on our website, we do have templates, which I'll go into in a second. So if it's a very small event, minimal we're ever going to ask you for is a risk assessment and the public liability insurance. If it's a larger event, we may ask for more items such as site plan, event management plan, traffic management plan. Okay, so site plan, what we ask for on this is for emergency exits to be clearly marked, public entry and exit points to be clearly marked, and event HQ. The one thing that we ask every single event to have is a HQ. If you don't have a HQ, then if there's an emergency, people aren't going to know where to go to. So whenever we have an event within our team, we always have a HQ. So if you would have a lost child or if you were to have an incident, you know that there is always that event HQ. I'll give an example as well. Some of you remember Deal Carnival a few years ago, and there was the jet ski incident, and the carnival then came to a standstill. No one at the front and back knew what was going on. So at the end of that, we did have a debrief, spoke to the organisers. They were really proactive. They took on the feedback. They then got, you'll see now when they do the carnival, they have a car which has microphones at the front and back, not microphones, walkie-talkies, and they're in constant, and that was feedback from this process. So that just shows you it can be effective, because we learned from that incident that we needed to ensure there was an event HQ, but on a moving event, it's quite hard. So they now do have an event vehicle. And when we did the baton relay last year, we did the same thing. We had our Hilux vehicle and we were the event HQ as we moved on. So if you have a moving event, you can still do that. Clearly parked car parking areas, marked, clearly marked disabled parking areas, toilets and site area clearly identified. So that site plan can just be, I mean, I shouldn't laugh, but I've done them on paint and things before, and we've had things that are drawn in. So as long as it shows clearly and you've got a drawing, it doesn't matter. It just needs, so the part, a lot of the time, so when this information comes in, it's submitted to the other partners, and they're the things that they ask for, which we'll go into more detail. So risk assessment, so as I said, there's lots of different templates on the website. So if you click this link when we send you the slides, you'll be able to see all the different templates. We have a COVID risk assessment on there as well, which if you still wish to use, you can. So that was social distancing, etc. during COVID. And we also have a template that you can use for events. We do understand that you're not experts. So if you send us in a risk assessment and one of the providers, so Kent, please come back and say, we're not happy with this, we will support you to go through it. We're not saying you have to do this in. So if you sent me a risk assessment that said, I don't know, for example, there's a trip hazard over there, Joe Blogg's going to fall over, and Kent, please come back and said that's not sufficient, we would work with you to make sure it's sufficient. We're not going to turn around and say you can't have your event because you haven't got the knowledge to fill out a risk assessment. That's not what the process is about. Okay. Traffic management plan. So not every event needs a traffic management plan. The reason you would need a traffic management plan is if it is going to have an event with large numbers. So an example of that could be a festival, or if you were having a running race, a road race that was going to have a real impact on the road network. So in relation to road closures, there's two types of road closures. There is what is called a section 16 road closure, and there is what is called a TPC road closure. So section 16 is a KCC road closure, and it's a full closure of a road, and it has to be done 12 weeks in advance. So you would need to apply. So that's why when we come on to it in a second, we do ask that events are applied for 12 weeks in advance of the event happening. And the reason we ask for that is because of the 12-week road closure notice time. A TPC is a very old Town Police Clauses Act, which if you look at the wording, it says thronging in the street. So if you were to have a carnival, or if you were to have thronging back in 1900s was basically dancing or walking in the street. So it's not been updated, and it's still a road closure that local authorities do use. So that is issued by a local authority. So it's we check with KCC and Kent Police, they're happy with it. Some events they do ask that go through a section 16, but most of the events we do are done under a TPC. So we would issue the TPC in advance. If we ask for a traffic management plan, then we ask to see clearly all of the road closures and all of the any park and rides, etc. We don't have a template as much because they're not required very often. However, we have done traffic management plans ourselves, and we have shared these with people in the past to support going forward. So what happens when you apply to ESAG? So as I said, we do ask for everything 12 weeks in advance, especially if you have a road closure. And we last year updated our system, so everything goes onto a portal called Event App, and then all of the partners, so the Coast Guard, Police, CCAM, they see your application and they comment on your application. If they were to have any issues with the application, they would write on there the issues, or they would come back to ourselves for administration, and Sandra would contact you direct and ask you. So the common one we get is on risk assessments on structures. So Kent Fire and Rescue will come back and say, have you thought about this fire risk assessment? Have you thought about this? Do you have a temporary structure? And then we'd ask you to update it. If there is a significant problem, or if there's been a problem with the event before, or there's noise complaints, etc., we don't have meetings, but if there was an issue or we could foresee an issue, we would have a meeting. So we'd bring the partners and the event organizer together, and we would discuss the issues. But as I said, in the 7 years, we've only ever asked one event not to happen, and I think we have about 150, 200 events a year. So that just shows you the scope of how much we want to work people to ensure we have safe and effective events across the district. Oh yes, sorry. So once everyone is happy, so when you go through online, so you fill out the original form, at that moment in time, you have to adhere to a memorandum to occupy. So what that does is it then goes through the whole process, and people always say to us, so they put all the paperwork in, have you approved it? Have you approved it? Can we have our event? From the moment you put the application in, you can promote, because as I said, we will work with you to ensure the event goes ahead. So what we then do, once all the documentation is submitted to the partners, you've had all the feedback, then you obviously we'll say to you, we'd send over the invoice. So we're not at any time, because you sign the memorandum to occupy at the point of the application. So then what we're doing is working with you to ensure the event could go ahead. Obviously, if at any point it couldn't, we withdraw consent, and we do that in writing. And then obviously in some circumstances on charges, so we have a community rate, We have a small commercial rate, we have a large commercial rate, which is kind of your circuses, fun fairs, etc. And we do ask for deposits on our land as well. Obviously, if it's private land, we don't charge anything, but we obviously work with you in the same process. That was a lot of information in a few minutes. So does anyone online or in the chamber have any questions? Yep, Chris. Your mic on, Chris, so they can hear you on the. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. I think an example, if I was to ask to hire Walmer Green for a bike rally, for example, would there be a cost of hiring the Walmer Green initially, deposits and that kind of ilk? Would that come into this situation where it's saying, well, that's what the land's going to cost you to hire straight away, and this is what you got to bring along following your we call it your notices down there, which we have to follow to comply to. Well, not comply to, but follow.
Yeah, so the way it works is once obviously we've gone through all the process, we'd send an invoice. So the invoice would be for community rate is around £50 for the whole day, and then deposit for a community group I think is £75. So and obviously if the land is not damaged in any way, which our Parks and Open Spaces team inspect, then you would get a full refund on the deposit. So the community rate that is charged to most groups is £50. That's for a whole day hire. And just to give you an indication, what we charge for large commercial is £600, so it's a massive reduction. So for circuses, etc., we're charging them £600 a day for operational days.
So only one more question on that basis. If there was damage, obviously for the grass, if it's on a green, would you then seek compensation from the organiser to replenish the damaged land?
So whenever an application comes in, we always talk to our Parks and Open Spaces team initially, and we would say to them, obviously, are you happy with this event? Because the type of event could cause obviously damage, and then at the end they would inspect, and in some occasions, it doesn't happen very often, they would take it off the deposit, but in most cases it's kind of only if there was extensive damage, it wouldn't be the general wear and tear. So if you think when there's a large event on Walmer Green for a duration of a few weeks in the summer, the green does go brown. They're not going to ask for money back for that, because it's obviously, that's just nature, isn't it? So, yeah. Does anyone have any questions online at all or in the chamber?
It looks like quite quiet online, but I will just ask a couple of questions that were sent prior to the event. Excuse me, it might be something that you'll find beneficial and maybe something that you've not thought of. Some of them that Mark has covered anyway, but I think some of the key ones which may be beneficial is, what do you need in place to enable young people, so under 18, that want to volunteer? Is there anything in particular that those people should be aware of? Or as an organisation, if you wanted to take on a volunteer under the age of 18, are there any specific processes that need to be followed?
Yeah, so youth volunteering really splits into 4 age groups. For 16 and 17-year-olds to volunteer, it's quite straightforward. They volunteer as anybody else would. 14 and 15-year-olds certainly can volunteer and should be encouraged to volunteer, but best practice would be that when they go for their interview or their first visit to the project or whatever they're doing, that a parent or guardian or perhaps a teacher goes with them. One thing to note is that we don't do DBS checks on any young people below the age of, well, try not to do it below the age of 19. But we certainly don't do it on 16 and 17-year-olds. People younger than 14 can volunteer, and this would generally be through 3 methods. It would either be family volunteering, so Workcliff Countryside, Kent Wildlife Trust, they put on events for the whole family, including the children. It may be through a group such as Scouts, Guides, Brownies, or some schools, for instance, the Turner School, they have a volunteering day, and all of their young people from reception to year 13, they all volunteer on the same day. So that's really how you work with young people. There are some quite complex rules around it. So if anybody is planning on working with volunteers who are under 16, please do come to Kent Coast Volunteering for advice, because there are quite a lot of rules around it.
Thank you, Mark. I won't go through all of them because, as I say, a lot of them have been covered in the presentations. Probably another one as well, which might be of interest, is best way to sign up volunteers. I'm sure that's can be common knowledge, obviously having events or promoting on social media, but are there any most effective ways that you found within Kent Coast Volunteering as a proactive way?
So using things like Simply Connect is great, but it doesn't replace being visible and being available. So if you're looking for volunteers and there is an event that you can go to, go, even if it's just setting up a table and some handouts, or you could always do an open day or a drop-in or a taster sessions. Taster sessions work really well, where people can come along and they can kind of try before they buy. And the other thing that I would say to everybody is there is a shortage of volunteers across all 4 countries in the UK. If a volunteer approaches your organisation and they're interested, snap them up, get them in, even if it's just inviting them down for a cup of tea and a biscuit. If you wait 2 or 3 days, remember that volunteers are probably have applied for 4 or 5 different volunteering roles, and it is the person that gets in first generally that gets the volunteer. So don't delay, don't put it off, do it as soon as you get a contact from a volunteer, straight away, go for it.
Thank you. Some of the other points that we had were around events. For those that did have any questions or were thinking about putting on events either in the room or online, hopefully Becky's presentation has helped. We'll send out the information after as well, so you'll have the links on where to go to find the information to register an event, but hopefully you should all have my email address as well, so if you have got any other questions, do let me know.
There are a couple of other things, because they are frequently asked questions, but they tend to be asked in private. So without knowing anybody's circumstances here or at home, or who may see this recording, can I volunteer if I've got a criminal record? Yes, anybody can volunteer, and anybody can volunteer regardless of what criminal record they have. So the type of criminal record you have will affect the volunteering that you can do. But even for the most serious offenders, there is volunteering that's available to them. If that's the case with you, and you have a probation officer, you can ask them. If it's the case that you no longer have a probation officer or it's spent, then do get in touch with me or one of the 3 people that I showed you, and we will help you. Second question, DBS or police checks. We know that until recently, the majority of DBS before CRB checks were being done for completely the wrong reasons. The DBS service have really tightened up on that. A DBS is if somebody is safe with a child or a vulnerable adult, and they will now challenge ones that are done to find out if somebody is safe to be on a till. That's not what it's for. So if you're not sure, if you run an organisation and you're not sure who or if anybody in your organisation, whether it's staff or volunteer, needs a DBS check, come to us. We have a DBS officer who will advise you. And one more thing, and then I will shut up, I promise, is the importance of references. A lot of organisations, despite people like me keeping on and on and on, they still don't take references up on volunteers. You wouldn't employ somebody without taking references up. Even I would rather that they're in writing, but even if it's just ringing somebody just to ask if they know about the person, because if they are trying to volunteer for nefarious reasons, somebody, you could do a DBS check and it'll come back clean because they've never been caught, but somebody that knows them isn't going to have their reputation tarnished by giving them a reference. So please do take references up on your volunteers. It's best practice. Everybody should do it. I can't make you, and I can't make anybody at home, but please take my advice. Take up references. It's a good thing to do.
Okay, and just one thing that I wanted to mention that came to our attention yesterday, just on the event side of things, is that there's something, a government guide called the Purple Guide. And what the Purple Guide is kind of like an advisory book of an advisory tool for people that are putting events on and local authorities. So an example is if you have a large festival, it would say in there, basically if you have 500 people, you have to have 2 toilets, etc. So it kind of tells you how many toilets, and it is very valuable. We have a subscription to that, and the government do charge for subscription, but what they brought out is some funding. So each so it's been ring fenced, and there's now funding available for people to apply for events. So it has been sent round to our community development officers, and they will share that with you going forward. So if you are eligible, then you could apply to that for events. So I just wanted to make that known going forward. Is there any further questions, either online or in the chamber? Okay, thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you on the 14th of December.